Everybody excited? Everybody having a good time? Yeah! So much better than that dribble you gave me this morning. Yeah, we're excited. Have that coffee.
Still whining, Mike.
You're whining. Oh, I violated my own rule. Wait. Grand poobah. It's going to get really dark in here. As soon as I figure out this. It's a good thing I don't operate spaceships because that's not the right path. How many engineers does it take to turn on the lights? Back. Oh. That's bad. That's bad. That's good. That works. You ready? I'm ready.
Kind of like an elevator, actually.
All right. Go ahead and go. You're good.
I get the presenter slide as well. Okay, I'm going to introduce myself before I hit go, because I've only got 5 minutes and not going to waste a lot of introductions. My name is Doug Ellison. I'm a visualization producer at JPL, and yes, I am British. I moved out here about 4 months ago. Here goes nothing. So, what I'm going to show you is, I'm very lucky to be able to do this. This is the first public exposure of a project we're working on called the Explorer engine. This is our group's attempt to try and solve something of a difficult problem. And that problem is that the solar system is exceptionally large. It covers kind of 12 scales of magnitude from a person to the orbit of Pluto. Spacecraft are traveling exceptionally fast, and yet you're watching it in a map, it's not moving. And we've got spacecraft that can be moving incredibly quickly, but things happening incredibly slowly. And we've tried to explain this to people. There are lots of traditional ways of explaining this to people. We can show you orbit trajectory maps or flyby trajectories or kind of a pre-rendered visualization or animates various pieces of data. But I think we can and should try and do better. We've done better for Earth science. Some of you may have heard of a project called Eyes on the Earth. That's what this is. This is real-time Earth observation satellite data in your browser on a 3D Earth showing actual orbit trajectory lines bang up to date. You can get data from this one. In fact, I was showing someone earlier. Today is carbon monoxide, or carbon monoxide over Russia with those recent fires. But can we do that for the whole solar system? And the answer is probably yes. We know where the spacecraft are. We know what data they've taken. We know where all the planets are. If we tie it all together with some contextualized content, some tours, and some tools, we come up with what we've called the Explorer engine. And it looks a little bit like this. It's a bit dark. Hopefully you can see it. This is running in real time in 3D. These are screen-captured movies. And you can see we've got the solar system here, a few spacecraft. You can zoom in and out. You can run time forwards or backwards. You can zoom down to very small scale or very, very large scale. Here's to give you an example of where the technology goes. AcromSat's about the size of a golf cart. So we can zoom out past the Earth, past the inner solar system, watch Orion deconstruct itself. That's a couple of thousand nearest stars. This thing expands well beyond the solar system. Next video, here we go. Come on. We've got visualizations of comets, an estimated nucleus, a simulated comet tail. Let's fly over to Mars. We've got a nice little texture of Mars. That's 16,000 pixels across at the equator. We're doing the same thing for the Earth as well. Spacecraft in orbit around Mars. I think you can probably see where this sort of technology can go. Here's the Earth. These are the same spacecraft you can see on Eyes on the Earth right now. In their proper locations in orbit around the Earth. You can go ride on board with them. In fact, you can go ride on board with any of the spacecraft we've put into this thing so far. And we can expand it beyond Earth orbit. We can show things that are happening right now. This is actually the Cassini spacecraft, a flyby of Titan from a couple of months ago, using the actual spice kernels. This is positional and pointing data that's used by the missions themselves, put into this thing so you can see what a spacecraft actually got up to. And you can do this for years and years of a mission. We can go back in history. These are the spice kernels for one of the Voyager spacecraft. So we're going back to the late 70s, early 80s, doing a Saturn flyby. We don't quite have the pointing information for Voyager here, but you can go back, you can look at Pioneer 10, Pioneer 11, Voyager 1 and 2, missions in the past, and missions in the future as well, because a mission proposal will involve simulated spice kernels. So here you can see the Juno spacecraft in orbit doing a slingshot past the Earth to fly out all the way towards Jupiter, and you can see, just to kind of reinforce this real time in 3D, I panned here and watch those first few orbits as it gets there. And we can even go further into the future. I can't really think of a better way than this to explain to someone how gravity assists get a spacecraft from the inner solar system all the way out to Jupiter there. These aren't working too well on this screen. If you want to come have a look at this afterwards, I'll show you it on my laptop. And this is unfortunately pretty dark. This is riding on board an asteroid. This is riding on board Apophis, in fact, for its flyby in a couple of decades' time, showing how close it gets to the Earth. If someone's terrified by the impending end of the world, courtesy of some rogue asteroid, we can put it in here and show them just how close it gets, or indeed how far away it actually is. And this is kind of a God-eye view, an overhead view, showing Apophis. You can see the orbit of the moon there and just how close it gets. The actual orbit trajectory line bends as it goes past the Earth. It's an interesting way of trying to explain this. Now, these are all kind of things that have happened in the past, things that are happening in the future, kind of historical or predictive. But this is the Epoxy spacecraft. This is the Deep Impact Extended Mission. And here's an accelerated version of its flypast of Comet Hartley 2 using predicted kernels for the spacecraft and the comet. This is going to happen in the beginning of November, November 4th. That's highly accelerated, but this is one of those very unique situations whereby something is happening so quickly. This is actually now shown in real time. This is how quick it would actually occur. So we can say to someone, welcome to this mission. What's it doing right now? And take them to see it, show them exactly where it's pointing, where it's flying, and what it's flying past in real time. This is just a little sample of what this thing can do. These are the people responsible for it. Kevin is our boss. The programming team are on the left. The artistic team are on the right. I make the T. I'm at the bottom there. And the punchline for this, the thing that I think makes it so much more powerful than anything else that may be out there, is that you'll be able to try this thing in October. Not downloading anything, not installing anything. It'll be in your web browser. Everything I've shown you will work straight in your web browser. Brace yourselves, the solar system is coming to your desktop. Thank you very much indeed.
Okay, questions for him real quick?
Yes.
Looking at the video you showed, it seems quite similar to Celestia.
Yes, the analogy to Celestia is one we've made ourselves. A byline we've often come up for is this thing is Celestia for the rest of us. I sometimes struggle to get Celestia to do exactly what I want to do. I'm never sure if it's up to date. I'm never sure if I'm using something that's wrong. Sometimes it doesn't work. With this, all of that is taken out of your hands. It's everything we want to show you up to date, as accurate as we can make it, plus that contextualized content that we're going to be bringing into it by the time we release it in October.
Would be open source or API available?
No, it's using the Unity 3D engine in your browser. At the back.
Is there plans to bring citizens in so they can inject content?
We want to try and engage people with a kind of a 2.0 version. We want to try and bring in some social media, have people sharing views or kind of building their own favorite solar system and things like that. It's all a case of time and money at some point in the future. And we're thinking of kind of different ideas for games whereby people can kind of bake their own content that they then throw into this system and see how it behaves with the rest of the solar system. So yeah, it's something we're looking at. If you've got some good ideas, come and find me because I'd love to hear them. Yes?
For an engine, is it for the version coming out in October?
Yes.
Pre-programmed, is it predefined applications or can it build?
No, it's a built, managed thing in a browser. It's not something you can take off and play with, tweak yourself. It's on its own, defined, the content defined by us.
In the future, because I'm currently working with a problem with SDK that is requiring vast scale differences.
Yes.
In designing a mission, could we as mission designers start to develop some kind of strategy to utilize it for it?
Come and speak to me. We could certainly do something. We could certainly go down a route whereby there'd be a means for you to inject your own stuff into it. Yeah, exactly. We pull Spice files straight off the PDS and dump them straight into this thing.
50 to 100-year-old, whatever mission that's going to X at any point.
Currently, this thing, in terms of time, this thing runs from 1950 to 2050 right now. So fit it in that box, we can get it in there.
Aren't you kind of competing with Google and Microsoft?
I don't think they do something like this. I don't think they do something that is coherent as this and takes.
Maybe not as detailed as the orbits and.
Yeah, I mean, for example, we're not going to try and compete with Google Earth or Google Earth turned on Mars mode with this sort of thing. We're not going to be able to zoom in, zoom in, zoom in. At some point in the future, maybe we'll have that built in, but for now, it's more the bigger picture. Where are these spacecraft? What are they doing? And that's not something that's.
Well, instead of looking like competitors to them, maybe I'll link up with them and look into, once somebody goes so far with Microsoft or Google, if they want to go even further, then they can go to NASA and jump into your browser. So I'm just wondering if there's jumping off points instead of competing points.
We're certainly not kind of, we don't have our hands over our eyes regarding Google and Microsoft. I won't say anything else than that. Yeah.
Are the remaining shuttle launches simulatable?
Technically, they are simulatable. We have the ISS in its proper orbit so far. We could look at that, but I think it's a case of time and money, really, is that we wouldn't have time to bring that stuff in. But it's an interesting thought, actually. It would be quite interesting.
It would have been nice, you know, in past launches when we've had night flights, you know, the DC area, watching them simulating so you know what star it's passing.
That's something certainly for kind of a 2.0 release, we would hope to have a kind of an observatory mode whereby you say, I am here, bake yourself into the ground, and then look up and see where stuff's going to be visible.
Yes, is there any licensing issues if we want to look at this on our site for our members?
That's a very good question. This is going to be embedded into a NASA site, embedding it, I'm not sure we would really want you to do that, but we can have a conversation.
All right.
Thank you very much indeed.
Next up, Tim Bailey. Yuri's Night. Do you need the lights on or off?
No, they're good where they are.
I start when you start.
And my time begins now. Hello, SpaceUp! Welcome to the Yuri's Night Ignite Talk. My name is Tim Bailey. I'm an assistant director with Yuri's Night. That means that I take on responsibility for making the world have the biggest party it has ever seen. Yeah, it's a kind of big responsibility. We do it on 12th April to celebrate Yuri Gagarin's first launch into space. He was the first guy that's recorded and said to go up into space. Debate, who cares? We still celebrate Yuri. He's the guy in the history books. Also on April 12th, we have the first space shuttle launch. It is a cosmic coincidence that the space shuttle happened to launch 30 years from the day from the very first person. So we have the first guy to go up, and he talks about how beautiful space is, how amazing the planet is, and that we need to save it. And he's a Soviet cosmonaut saying these things from orbit. Not what you would expect. Then we have the space shuttle go up, the first reusable that's going to take everyone. So we decide to have a huge party to celebrate, and thousands of people show up. It was supposed to be only one party in LA, and the rest of the world, through the Space Generation Advisory Council, said, we wanted party too, can we do that? The answer, yes. So since 2001, we've been constantly expanding the parties. Last year, over 200 events, over 67 countries. We had thousands and thousands of people coming out to party. The Ames Research Center hosted the largest party. They had over 10,000 people coming out over 2 days. 10,000 people coming out to celebrate space, science, art, music, and the intersection of all of those things. These are some of the countries and places where we've had parties. If you don't see your country or your city up on this list, get it there this year. 2011 is the 50th anniversary of human spaceflight. 50 years in space! And this is where we've gotten so far, and this is how far we have become. 4,000 people on the dance floor at Ames in 2008. 4,000 people crowding into a hangar out of the Ames Research Center so that they can hear music. They heard Chris McKay talk about life on Mars. This year we had Pharrell Williams of Nerd. We have actual pop culture people out talking space, and everybody loves it, everybody gets excited, and you can too. The biggest thing to look at here is, what do you want to do? Astronaut Richard Garriott, he talked about how his dad was an astronaut, how he wanted to be one, and NASA said no. And he said, you know what, that doesn't work for me. I'm going to make my own money, I'm going to make my own way, I'm going to go to space by myself. And he did that. Phenomenal story, a great guy, and exactly what we want you to do at Yuri's Night. This is Bay Area. This is the biggest party on the planet so far that we've had. I challenge you, how do you have a party that has 15,000, 20,000 people all getting together to celebrate space? You can get 75,000 people to come listen to Celine Dion. We can at least get that many people to come out and celebrate something as amazing as our home planet and the exploration of the universe. Wired, when they were talking about this, everybody assumed that people were just coming out for the music, but what really happened is that even the journalists noticed people didn't just want to see the crazy stuff. They were actually interested in what was going on in space. People are interested. They want to know what's going on. They're excited by what's happening in space. They just need to be able to connect to it in a way that works for them. And that's what Yuri's Night provides. Anybody can get involved. Anybody can be a part of it. If you're an artist, musician, scientist, astronaut, mom, dad, kid, it doesn't matter. Yuri's Night is for you, and there's a way that you can celebrate. So all of these things, this is Ace of Cakes. They actually made a cake that looked like Jupiter and set it spinning with its moons, made a Hubble Space Telescope all out of cake, and put it up at the Goddard Space Flight Center. That was on their premiere episode for that season. Everybody loves this stuff, and the best part about it, the thing that I really want you to get, is that it's you that's making this happen, and it's you that's going to make it happen next year. So we came from all over the United States, all over the world to SpaceUp DC. Well, what we want to do is take this back out to the world. I want every one of you in this room to host 5 parties. I want you to go out and get 5 of your friends in different cities to do things. It doesn't matter if it's in Beijing and you have 3,000 students at a university, if it's at your house and you have 10 people watching Spaceballs, or watching our global webcast that we're going to do on Space Vidcast. Toronto got their Science Center involved. The Academy of Sciences in California has been involved. Everybody can do something. If it's your kid's classroom, if it's your baking club, it doesn't matter. Everybody can do things. Down in the Space Coast, we had a big party at the Astronaut Hall of Fame, and we ended up with people doing the hula dance, learning how to hula up on stage. The center directors, former astronauts, all up there having a good time, and people connected with what it was to be involved with space. Space does not mean that you sit behind a desk. It does not mean that you do equations all day. It does not mean that you are boring. Space is fun. And this is what Yuri's Night shows people. Everybody involved with space, everybody in this room is a real human being that loves to have fun, that loves to do cool things. And most people don't know that. So Yuri's Night is your chance to get together with them, show them that you're awesome, show them that you can have a fun time, and that is what we want you to do. Host your own party, spread the word, create a community that gets excited about things, go have fun, whatever that looks like for you, and we will see you on Yuri's Night. Questions? Bring it. Baking club, it doesn't matter. Do it wrong. If you don't think your baking club can do it, I challenge you to have a baking club Yuri's Night party. Oh, a bacon club would be even better. How can you with a bacon club? Any other questions?
What if you're scared to have a party?
Do it anyways. You talk to me. You go to yurisnight.net. Yurisnight.net is where you can sign up for free. All you do is you plant your flag on the global map, say, I'm having a party, and that's where it starts. If you are scared, then what you need to do is sign up. The minute you sign up, you are having a party, and that's where it begins at. Do something you don't want to do. Step outside your comfort zone. Be wrong. Do it the absolute wrong way, and that's perfect. We want you. Any other questions? Yes?
Does it count as a day party?
Absolutely. Yuri's Night can be hosted. You know, we let people host. Sometimes it works to have it the weekend before, or you have to wait and do it during a weekday so you can have it in your classroom. That's fine. You can sign up any day you want and celebrate it any time you want. Even if it's 2 or 3 days, or you have a 24-hour gaming session, that's fine. It's still Yuri's Night. It's like St. Patrick's Day. We don't tell you how to do it wrong. We just tell you to do it. Anybody else? Anything else? All right, everybody raise your hand. You're hosting a Yuri's Night event if you raise your hand. Awesome! Thank you very much. Yes?
Would it be possible to make it a national holiday?
It is absolutely possible to make it a national holiday, and I will support you 100% in writing up the legislation to make that happen. Let's do it. Global. I want you to go bigger. Take it to SGAC as a global holiday. Actually, Space Week came about because they accidentally forgot to say April 12th when they were requesting a global space holiday. And so the UN decided to make Space Week, and they said, well, we actually meant 6 months earlier on Yuri's Night, but that's fine. We'll do our own party, and you guys do your Space Week later on. Anybody? Anything? Find me. All right, thank you.
Is Alex in the room? Yeah. All right. You're up. Let me know when you're ready. You want to introduce yourself real quick?
Okay, Sandy Antunes. I'm a freelance science writer and scientist, and I'm building a satellite in my basement that launches in the spring. Thank you.
Ready to rock?
You can too.
Ready?
I'm ready.
Go.
All right, in the process of building the satellite, I ran into people that fear space. And my first thought is mollify them, But then I thought, okay, I'm a nice guy, but hey, let's look at it the other way. What kind of damage can we do from space with a Pico satellite, the small satellites that are being launched? So it's time to put your evil hat on, get your supervillain on, and start thinking about it. I'm going to talk about some of the ideas I came up for a death-dealing satellite. But first, I'm going to look at some of their fears that they told me about. Some of their fears are, uh-oh, you're going to crash into other satellites, and this would be bad. Now, see, I'm a nice guy. I'm just doing fun stuff. So there's our crash into other satellites. That would be bad. You could fall down and hit my house. People should not mess up commercial space. It doesn't feed hungry people on Earth. It costs a lot of money. It will blow up. So obviously, if we're going to design an evil satellite, we have to incorporate as many of these concepts as we can. So I'm not doing a music satellite. I'm going to be Dr. Doom. This is the best I can do with a 200-gram Pico satellite to rain death upon the Earth, just to make them fear me. And I want you to think about how you can make them fear us. This is how we'll get noticed. We're going to have to address the fact that even though satellites are like slot cars and tracks, that we want them to be like Galaxy 15 and crash into something really major and important so that we can knock out their TV, because that's what supervillains will do. We're going to have to make pollution in orbit. This was a big concern that just like WALL-E, we're polluting orbit with these little Pico satellites that completely burn up in 12 weeks. Don't know how those two mix, but this is not about rationality. This is about dealing destruction and such. We're going to leave a big crater, if possible, when we do this, although that may not work if you do Galaxy 15 crashing other satellites. You might have to choose crater, crash. But these are the kind of choices supervillains have to make, and that you all will have to make in the audience. And finally, you could just put it up to do death dealing. You know, maybe just keep it where it is and shoot something else in 200 grams. The 200 grams is going to continue to come back here, unfortunately. Now, people have thought about this before. Maybe some of you have thought about it. There's a bit of literature on this. But again, we're at 200 grams. 200 grams is the weight, and as it happens, about the size of a Nintendo DS. So, we're going to have to make a Nintendo DS kind of thing that can cause damage. Now, in orbital speeds, it's doing about 6 megajoules at the speed it's going, about 1 kilogram of dynamite, if you can deliver it. But that means you're going to have to hit something and break orbit. So obviously, you got to add tentacles. Tentacles are part of every mad science thing. But my idea, take monofilament, fishing line, have some weight so that you can deploy it out in some way. The best way to deploy it is from the show Babylon 5, where you have something rotating. You just open a door, maybe a little spring to kick it out, and your Star Fury on Babylon 5 drops out through the orbit. You could do that. You could have these monofilament things. So suddenly you have a really big reach, almost like a net for your satellite. So you're much, much bigger than the teeny 1-liter soda bottle that you're going with. All right, so now that we're big, we have to kick it into a different orbit. Because if you're just in your orbital slot, you're not going to hit anything. That's why they do orbit. You're going to have to go eccentric. You're going to make your lifetime shorter, but you're going to have to kick it. So you need some sort of rocket engine. Now, you can put like a model rocket engine that you have on the ground if you can solve the oxygen thing. Of course, you're going to have to get past interorbital systems who do the launch because they're actually going to look. So you paint it to look like a capacitor on your electronics board. So now you're able to get your thing to go into a wildly eccentric orbit, and you've made it bigger so you're more likely to hit one. And then, ironically, you now pray that you're going to be able to do damage in your rapidly short lifetime orbit before you decay and totally come up. And so the conclusion that I came from all of this is that I kind of suck at being a supervillain. Because that's the best I could do with 200 grams. My challenge to all of you is, they fear us, let's give them reason to fear us. Let's try and come up with ideas of neat things you can do in orbit that people haven't thought about because it's fun. Now, the reason we don't do this in real life, you have to invert it. Would we do this? No. Because in rocket science, hard is fun, but not fun stuff is hard. And that's some of what makes us rocket scientists. So I'm going to say, well, time to take the evil hats off and get back to our real world. But, you know, if you want to think about these kind of things, these doomsday scenarios or being a supervillain, do it. It's fun. It's a good thought exercise. I'll take questions afterward, but if anyone has any cool death-dealing 200-gram ideas, feel free to speak up now.
No, we can do that in 1 gram.
What?
Okay, remember the oh my god particle? It was detected by the fly-side magnetic telescope?
Oh,
It was
okay.
a proton traveling at 0.99999999999 meters to the light. I mean, it was going so fast that one proton had about, I guess about 36 joules of energy. So I figured, like, okay, what's happened if I multiply that by Avogadro's number, and see where that goes? Well, it turns out it was something like 750 million Yellowstone-type eruptions going on at once. So it was a pretty good little explosion at 1 gram hydrogen. So,
Well, see, the problem is 200 gram includes containers. So you could say send antimatter up, but you need your 200 grams to contain it and deploy it. Although I do think you could sneak antimatter past launch people, because that would have like lots of magnetic fields and helium and stuff, so it would be very cool to do. So any other supervillain ideas?
Instead of sending up your disguised rocket, you could combine it with your orbital fishing lines and get two things. Release a mass and get two things. Opposite eccentric orbits. So.
Ooh, okay. So an improvement on my design. This is the kind of evolution we need in our next supervillain counterpart to this conference. All right, thank you all for your
You're going to introduce yourself?
No, go.
All right.
You're slow. Hi. Number one, I want to thank the sponsors and the organizers for SpaceUp, because I think the ability to come and to talk space and to talk to a different group that I don't normally get to talk to is a great opportunity for me. I think it's a wonderful thing that what they've done is they've brought the U together. And I want to, number two, say that obviously I'm the only guy here with a tie on. I'm going to be very boring compared to everybody else, especially compared to Tim, but everybody else, because I'm not going to have some fancy slides. In fact, you've just seen the same slide twice, and you don't even know it. Yo, you're on number 3 already. 5 minutes is a long time to talk. So what I was going to use this time to talk about was the other things I want to say. But first, who is this guy up here in the suit and the tie? My name's Ken Davidia, and I currently work at the FAA Office of Commercial Space Transportation. I'm an aerospace engineer, mechanical engineer by education. I've been working for NASA most of my professional life, but we jumped out of government service for about 5 years. Worked for a company called Paragon Space Development Corp., a cargo lifter. Worked for X Prize Foundation for about 15 months. Left there about a year before Bert flew and ran. Okay, oh, this is great. Okay, this is a transitional, or this is a problem that you get when you go from PC to Mac. There's a series of presentations that I've done over the last 5, 6, 7, 8 years that talk about different aspects of commercial space. Currently, I'm working in the commercial space, Office of Commercial Space at the FAA. So commercial space right now is my life, and I really, really get excited about this. In my past 10 years of working, I've worked with Tim, I've worked with other exciting people on aspects of commercial space. And I wanted to touch on a certain number of talks that or topics that I can give talks on while we're here for the next 2 days. One of which is the AST Research and Development Program that's currently being developed within our office. We just recently announced the selection of some centers of excellence, which are 2 universities, 2 university-based teams, University of New Mexico and Stanford University. So I want to be able to give news about that. That's something that's real exciting. Our office is going to be doing Okay, our office is going to be doing on the order of $4 million of research a year. And you're talking about an office that has a total budget right now of about $15 million. This afternoon, I'm going to be doing a presentation that hopefully will look a little bit better than this. It's a presentation that I'll be giving in about a month at the IAC in Prague. It's on suborbital markets, the emerging suborbital markets, and applying something called disruption theory or innovation theory by a guy named Clayton Christensen. Here it is. Hit it a couple more times. This basically is an animated slide. There you go. This is a basic model of the innovation theory that we apply to the emerging suborbital markets. So I'll be giving that talk this afternoon. It's a paper, like I said, that we've been looking at applying industry-level market theories to the emerging commercial space markets to get a better understanding of how policy or acquisition strategy by the government should be applied to maximize the possibility that we can get these markets, hit it a couple more times, get these markets to fruition. This, by the way, is a plot of about 14,000 suborbital launches that have taken place throughout history. And these points down here, these little red squares with black outlines, are V2 launches, by the way. So anyways, these are all slides from that talk. Now, here's the list of presentations again. The ones that are in yellow, talking about AST research, the centers of excellence in the suborbital markets. Those are the talks that I stuck up on the board today. Once I understood what was going on and figured out the process here, I decided to pull back some talks that I had put on there because the talks will do better with, some do better with presentations, some without. One of the talks that I wanted to give today is on the introduction to our office, because a lot of people don't understand necessarily what the FAA does in space, in commercial space, and what our role is. So I wanted to be able to give the presentation about who we are, what our role is, and how we work to encourage, facilitate, and promote commercial space, as well as to ensure the public safety for the commercial operations. So this is a nice chart that came out okay, that shows an overview of all the regulations. It's the most boring thing in the world, but it's something that we're doing, and we're trying to minimize the regulations on the commercial space to make sure, again, that the industry can be successful. One of the talks that we gave earlier this year in Boulder, Colorado, at the Next Generation Suborbital Research Conference was about what are the regulatory implications on scientific payloads that are going to be going up on suborbital rockets, and what happens when people start flying with their payloads. So we can talk about that as well. Another presentation that I give in association with my work with AIAA and the commercial space group there talks about what is commercial space. The term commercial space, people don't know what it really means. There's a definition that came out in the policy, but it's still up for grabs. This, by the way, is a chart that shows the overview of the U.S. government's participation in space. So just to get your arms around what's going on in commercial space is a big deal. And so we could talk about that as well. In conclusion, again, I want to say thank you to the organizers for doing this. This is very much like improvisational games. It's improv theater. And I think this is a really exciting thing to do. We really, really do need to take chances. And if you're afraid of something, try it, because there is no real sense of failure there. And again, the final thoughts for me come from Bill and Ted's Excellent Adventure. Be excellent to each other and party on, dudes. That's it. If I can stand up here, any questions? Before and stuff. Okay.
Party on, dude.
Party on.
Yeah.
Really get a cue as to when you're hired to. Yeah, sure. You can put it up there.
F11. Maybe. Anybody know how to- Hold on. I got two screens. I'm getting there, dude.
Yeah, kind of. No, this is a pretty bad picture, by the way. Just before I say anything, well, there's one big problem with it. But I'll talk about. Yeah, there's another big problem with it.
There it is.
Okay. So one problem, I didn't know what the hell. I thought this was just like a regular picture of disco. It's actually Saturday Night Fever, and it's actually from the late 70s. So it just goes to show that Walking on the Moon is actually older than disco. See other few things. Pink Floyd's album right here was actually 1973. This was 1972 December, as you can see there. And some people always say, like, this was the last time we walked The Godfather on the moon, or But the biggest problem in this picture is in December of 2012, it will be the 40th anniversary of not walking on the moon. And I, for one, don't really want to see a 50th. So, without much further ado, my name is Jason Marsh, and I'm starting a space program. Wait for laughter to die down. Okay. Now, big difference. Now, this isn't. I'm sure a lot of you have heard of like open source projects like that. This is kind of that, but it's a little bigger. It's something designed to support open source projects. It's also designed to support commercial projects. It's designed to support individual projects. It's basically a big development environment. So collaborative development environment, skill-based matching of somebody has a question, find the person, here's somebody who can answer it. Actually, here's a bunch of people who can answer it. Dogpile on that question. Question gets answered. Repeat ad infinitum. Now, this little project is called the Open Space Movement. And if anybody here use Linux at all?
Yeah.
Okay. Now, do you know SourceForge.net?
Sure.
Okay. This is basically like SourceForge.net for aerospace engineering. And it's basically all run through one big honking website, which allows people to post projects and also have discussions on scientific topics, scientific and engineering topics of that nature, and kind of get help with developing their projects. And as things proceed, they can kind of get the projects to be funded and developed. It goes down the pipeline from pencil or pen on cocktail napkin to a draft to a design to testing, actual prototyping, then testing, certification, production, and then go on from there. 2 minutes up. Okay. Now, that by itself isn't terribly useful, but what it does is more of a means to an end, and the means to the end is getting people involved with space travel. This has the lowest possible energy of actually getting involved. You sign up. You want a project, type in the project's name, type what it is. Is it a vehicle, or equipment, a mission, a procedure, anything of that nature, and boom, there you go. Fill in whatever you want. Somebody else will come in and peer review the hell out of it, and then you kind of go from there. Now, this project is kind of based on public funding, and I say that because public funding is actually something that's very powerful that people don't usually realize. If I might make an example. The NASA's budget for currently is about $18 billion. The amount of money spent on cell phones in 2008 was about $38 billion. Now, if you look at the 2005 amounts for the Apollo program, this is like Mercury, Gemini, and Apollo, spread over about 10 or 11 years. 2005 dollar amount was $170 billion. The most recent 6-month period, the amount spent on cell phones was $65 billion. So it stands to reason, as long as that trend line didn't go down, we're currently spending more on cell phones in 1 year than the entire Apollo program spent in a decade. Now, this doesn't mean we have to stop buying phones or anything, but it is a useful barometer of what people have in disposable income that they could throw into spending on rockets. Speaking of which, if anybody's heard of the Copenhagen suborbital project, we are supporting them. They're definitely in our line of hey, we have a project here, we'll help you support it. And we've raised about $1,500 for them so far. I have like a little $5,000 grant we're planning as soon as we launch about the end of the month or so. And so far, they've spent about $200,000 over the last 2 years. They've had a lot of donations and donations of hardware and equipment, but their actual out-of-pocket expenses were $200,000. Now, the amount spent on ringtones over 2008 was about $750 million, $750 million. It's not hard to fund space, and this is basically the way people. This is basically the big funding, the big collaboration point for. We have cool ideas, fund them, cool stuff happens, and we publish the results, and the cycle keeps repeating itself until eventually we get to the point where suddenly we're not asking, can we fund a rocket, but how many can we fund per week? So, how many? What I'm time?
You're done.
I'm done. Okay. Anyways, so it's openspacemovement.org. Don't go there just yet because we're still working on the site. We should be up by the end of the by next week or so. And thank you.
Which one is it?
By the way, is there any questions at all?
Bootleg. Oh, yeah, questions. And can somebody go get ground glass? Is she here? Okay, you're up next.
Any questions at all?
Or actually,
How are you?
no, she's gonna say. Yes, like for serious. So you got.
When you're doing these open source projects, is there any guidelines you use to apply?
Yeah, I've talked about this with Mr. Barnhart over at the National Space Society. We generally feel the best way to handle this is one, have a little acceptable use policy or end user license agreement saying, do not post classified ITAR or proprietary, or trade secret information on here. That's one thing. Another thing is having, we'll have a little cadre of moderators who run around and look at other projects and kind of monitor the site. We'll take them and have them kind of work with a, what's the word for it, a liaison from the Office of Export Controls and the Department of State and Department of Commerce for the ITAR and EAR databases, respectively. So they can help, be on the lookout for how to actually monitor the stuff, what to look for, and if something happens, I'll have a point of contact to say, this happened, we're taking it off the site, just letting you know, and how do we proceed from here. So we do have like something planned for how to actually deal with that sort of thing. Yes.
All right.
Oh, you?
I just want to make sure I get the concept right. This is sort of like a space program incubator where people have got ideas and come to you?
Pretty much, yes.
Okay.
I mean, any kind of idea, you can post it on there. You can find other people's ideas, post it on there. And this kind of works from both ends of the spectrum. If you have, like, say, the requirement, start from like requirements, things that we need, and on the other hand, we have like, hey, here's a bunch of cool ideas that, we have no idea what they'll be used for. Somewhere in the middle you say, well, this is what we can do with what we have. And, as you kind of build up this and you build up this, then you can start doing some bigger and better things. And this is something that could make space travel happen in a matter of years rather than decades. And that's kind of an important point too, because if it happens in 10 years, and you have to, then nobody's going to care. So public participation, getting people involved, and all that. Okay, that means my time's up, I guess. Any more?
The shepherd's crook.
Oh.
We could talk offline. I'd like to suggest that we pay a little bit. I mean, if the project is centered with an address here in the U.S., perhaps from examples of the trouble that AMSAT, the organization, it's quite possible to stay out of trouble, but if it's going to be focused on, say, U.S.-led effort, then you might want to actually spend a little bit more time looking at what you need to do to take care of that issue first, because the penalties are quite severe.
That is true.
I mean, it's just that it's ultimately a restrictive, boundary on what you can or cannot do, but the formula that is acceptable is also equally restricted, so it's lesser of the two evils.
We do have about 600 members right now, and I'd say at least 100 of them or so are from other countries.
The key issue is that whether ideas are given in fundamental form, like, okay, it can be done, you don't know how to do it, go do it, versus this is the ready-made recipe to build something ready to go, and specifically the guidance, navigation, and control system. So, and also certain elements of spacecraft structure. Launch services aside, you have to be careful because of your particular situation. You're sitting here, you're in this country at this point. I mean, it's just, I went through that.
Yeah. Okay. There's two things we have for dealing with that. One is, let's see, if we actually have to buy something that is ITAR controlled, we can go in and say, hey, send us over a project, like a product integration engineer, and we'll just go buy the rocket. We'll stick what we want on top, and there it goes. Everybody's happy with that. And the other thing is, if there's a whole lot of 1970s, 1980s era technologies, ITAR controlled, we need access to that. Well, this might be a good incentive to actually build, an open source modern version of.
We can talk offline, but it's a little bit more complicated.
All right. Thank you.
You're cheating. That was not an Ignite talk. Right. I need to make one point clear before I start. I'm now not wearing my NASA hat. I'm now wearing the hat of a space enthusiast who 6.5 years ago founded a website that's now at unmannedspaceflight.com. Not as a stand against manned spaceflight. I love manned spaceflight. We need heroes, and that's where we get them from. But as a place for people to go and talk about Cassini, Spirit, Opportunity, New Horizons, and various missions like that. Spring of 2004, something incredible happened. Spirit and Opportunity landed on the surface of Mars, and immediately their images went online. Immediately. Same story 6 months later with Cassini. And me, as a space nut with a bit of a hand for Photoshop, thought, I'm going to make a mosaic out of that, or a movie, or stick it together and make a color mosaic. This is a color mosaic made from that sort of data, uncalibrated, stretched, compressed data. This is by an enthusiast called James Campbell. All in his spare time, I challenge you to tell this apart from an official NASA press release. But because there are so many people looking at these images, every panorama gets made. Every map gets a new point inside it. This is a more creative version of doing that sort of thing. I had a hand in this one. NASA couldn't do that themselves. It's not accurate enough. But Craig Kavalt saw that and thought, oh, now the cover of Aviation Week magazine. It became one of New Scientist's Images of the Year in 2005. The missions would get that coverage anyway, but I think this community can help. We can get even more creative. This is by a guy called Glenn Nagel from Australia. He's taken an amateur-made mosaic, which Opportunity took of its own heat shield, and then put a 3D model of Opportunity in that to give exact context. And that rover is actually to scale. That's Opportunity exploring its own heat shield. James Camden, again, is taking high-rise images. This is the amazing camera on MRO. And he's analyzing them to create a rudimentary drivability map. Say, for example, if you wanted to drive a rover from Victoria Crater to Endeavour Crater. Very, very useful stuff. Everyone needs a block diagram at least once. I've now learned that. Here's mine. This is a piece of software called Midnight Mars Browser. Google it, download it, Mac or PC. It's free. And it takes all the data that's available for Spirit and Opportunity, every single thing that's out there, brings it to your desktop and lets you reconstruct that back into 3D space. So here's some calibrated images put back into 3D space. Here's an uncalibrated PanCam images put on top of that. Here's calibrated images made by another guy called Dan Crotty in San Francisco. Here's the route the rover actually took, and here is a rover to scale. And we can do this at every single point the rover has taken an image, so we can actually animate the rover. So this is amateur-made images as a background, an amateur-made piece of software, an amateur-made 3D model, and the rover is actually following its own tracks beautifully. And you can do it the other way around. You can ride on board the rover and then watch the train jumping around behind you. Because there are so many people who look at this data and understand it, they can see a news story like this, where a nut job is claiming this is a puddle of water on Mars. And we can say, no, no, it's not that colour, it's this colour, because Dan up in San Francisco made the right one, and Midnight Mars Browser tells us that image is up here. It's on the side of a cliff. Are you insane? New Scientist retracted their claim. And same thing again. This is the sedimentary Sasquatch. This thing was found. It went to the BBC News website. This little monkey here is about this big, because we know how far apart the cameras are, how far away that is. So one guy took that principle, the principle of seeing things when they're not there, and extended it to the whole mosaic, including the high-speed turtle at the top there. New Horizons, the first mission to Pluto. One of its scientists, John Spencer, said, we're going to fly past Jupiter. When should we take pictures? Because they'll be cool. It's a simple question, and we gave him quite a few answers. In fact, one guy in particular, Richard Hendricks from Texas, he came up with some superb suggestions. These are visualizations of two views he suggested, Europa rising above the limb of Jupiter and Io and Europa juxtaposed against one another. Look at that first one top left. Here it is. That's a picture taken because a guy in Texas said, that would be cool, take that picture. And they did, they actually took it. Even better than that is the next one, because it takes the story full circle. It's another suggestion by Richard Hendricks, but they released the data for this online really, really quickly. And so Emily Lacdawala from the Planetary Society took the high colour and produced this mosaic. It's the full story, all one coherent thing. Now, European scientists don't do this. I'm going to call out the Rosetta team for being appalling at this. 5 years in space and not a damn thing released on the web. It's an outrage. But the engineers at ESOC, they get this. This is the worst camera you'll ever see. But it's on Mars Express. It's in orbit around Mars. They put the pictures online automatically the moment they're online. Within 24 hours of them doing that the first time, there's a DOS prompt script to process that to colour pictures. They're now using that same script to put the colour pictures on the website themselves. They're speaking to use this stuff. There are school kids doing projects out of this. This is participatory exploration. People are speaking about it as if it's something new, as if that's something we should aspire to. I've been doing it for 6.5 years. What's keeping you? If you want to participate, participate. You don't need an invitation. Everything you need is already out there. And for missions who aren't really on board yet, I've got one very simple message for you. If you're struggling to do your outreach, there's one very simple rule you can follow. Just let people in. Thank you very much indeed. Yes?
When we superimpose a spacecraft or lander on an image that they expose,
yes.
What way we can keep trust when the school kid asks, what took the picture?
You can say that about anything ever photoshopped.
Once you say it's Photoshop, that you lose credibility for...
No, I don't think so. I don't think you lose credibility. I think what you get is a talking point. And you can say to someone, well, actually, no, this is the picture of the rover itself. And you put the rover in it to give you a sense of scale. Because without that rover, some people might not have any idea how big that sort of thing was. So I do see your point, but I don't concede it.
I would never point that as a question.
Anyone else? News book comment.
So do you see this as complementary to NASA's outreach, or do you see this?
Absolutely. Yeah, absolutely. It's a simple addition that repays itself many-fold, in my opinion.
And I guess the follow-on question to that is, what can NASA do to better utilize the leverage, this thing that's already happening?
It's a question that many missions are asking, like, from future missions, and it's a very simple principle. I, as a taxpayer, have paid for this data, and whilst I completely conceive and understand that scientists have got a lifetime to get it, they have a duty to share it as well. So, yeah, if you want to share it as a really crude, compressed, uncalibrated, stretched JPEG, do that, and people will make something of it. They'll do something pretty cool with it. If you can give them some ancillary information about when it was taken and where it was taken, that's good as well. All those steps towards giving people as much information as they can. Then, for example, JPL outreach guys, they do their very, very best, but they can't put a new route map up for opportunity every single day, every single time it tries. There's a guy called Eduardo Teixeira. He does it every day for free. He wants to. He puts it into Google Earth so you can get a new point in the KMZ file in your browser, a little route map every single time the rover moves within hours. No media office can do that. By putting the tools out there, you let the public go instead. Yeah.
So that kind of speaks to something I've been getting at. Getting that data out there.
Yes.
I would love it, especially for manned flight missions.
Yes.
Do you have insight into that? Is there pressure to be brought? You know.
I'll make a concession at this point. On the forum that I run. Sorry, Ben. I keep moving just to make your job more difficult. This could go for hours. I'll make a concession. The forum that I founded and that I've now handed off to the panel society for an article, I actually had a set of rules that half broke my heart. I actually had to ban discussion of manned spaceflight in it because it turned into a flame war every single time. Same with a couple of other issues. I think NASA's getting a little bit of the way there with putting images taken during shuttle ISS flights online pretty quick. And when they do that, you get people producing mosaics of the RPM or anaglyphs of approach, things like that. I think ITAR probably makes it very hard to do anything more technical than that. But I think there is certainly scope for kind of a more automated, all-inclusive process of, here are some of the things. Yeah, just chuck them all out there. You don't need to caption every single one. Just chuck them out there and someone can play with them just for fun.
All right, I'm giving you the boot.
Thank you.
It's the first time someone's ever thanked me for giving them the boot. That's awesome. I think it's your English heritage. Come on out. SpaceUp DC is about bringing all kinds of different people together. I just noticed that we have our newest SpaceUp DC member. How old is he now? 6 weeks. So, as a contributing member to SpaceUp, the next generation is in the room, which is really, really amazing. Something I forgot to say before we started today is that when you interact with the people that are here today, I want you to remember that the future that we want to create, all the resources, every single person you need is here right now. Every single person. We have access to the right people, the right things. All we have to do is do it. And that's what this is about. So, did I stall long enough? Almost. Getting there. Usually I can just talk about anything. Oh, that's good. I put that up there. Now you guys know what I have to do today. Where is it? I gotta send those are stickers to Chris Radcliffe because he feels really bad he can't be here. I gotta change the key. Stop.
I got bad paper.
All right, you're on.
Sounded okay out there? Well, for those of you who don't know me, my stage name is Craftlass, and also my name on Twitter. And I wrote this song about space outreach, and it's somehow really taken off amongst space people and even people who think that NASA should be completely disbanded. And so that's who I'm really trying to reach and teach them that it's not, just about wasting a lot of money, since they seem to think we burn cash as fuel. So I decided I should do this song, and I hope you enjoy it. We sent men to the moon because of some lines in a speech that inspires to this day. We learned more about Earth from orbit than we can in any other way. Yet we spend and we spend and we spend and we spend on corporate welfare that will never end. Programs that waste more than they create. Yet we're happy to let NASA deflate. So let's hold a bake sale for NASA. Show our love for a program that actually works. The cookies are sure to be out of this world. We could even have Astros as clerks. Give folks a chance to learn firsthand why we need these adventures in space, how it affects them directly at home, and elevates the whole human race. A very large chunk of what sets us apart is our driving need to explore. Humans are best when we're trying to test our limits and find we have more. The more that we learn, the less that we know. So further on still, we must go to answer the questions that in the past we didn't even know to ask. So let's hold a bake sale for NASA. Show our love for a program that actually works. The cookies are sure to be out of this world. We could even have Astros as clerks. Give folks a chance to learn firsthand why we need these adventures in space, how it affects them directly at home, and elevates the whole human race. To turn this whole endeavor over to private investors and other lands would be giving up the greatest power we have in our nation's hands. Some skeptics say we should keep funds at bay until we have fed everyone. But we produce more food than ever before because of what NASA has done. Every invention created for space on Earth has found a useful place, saving some lives and improving many more like we've never seen before. So let's hold a bake sale for NASA. Show our love for a program that actually works. The cookies are sure to be out of this world. We could even have Astros as clerks. Give folks a chance to learn firsthand why we need these adventures in space, how it affects them directly at home, and elevates the whole human race. In these days where folks are always trying to take real science out of schools, we need to step up our efforts or become a nation of fools. I could run for days extolling the ways investment in NASA makes sense, but I have only this song to convince those who are wrong and think it's a wasteful expense. I will dare to say it's our greatest success. Less than 1% is hardly excess in a budget that keeps us all in debt. At least here we can see what we get. So let's hold a bake sale for NASA, show our love for a program that actually works. The cookies are sure to be out of this world. We could even have Astros as clerks. Give folks a chance to learn firsthand why we need these adventures in space, how it affects them directly at home, and elevates the whole human race. Human race. Humans in space. Thank you.
All right, we're good?
Yeah.
All right. There is pizza.
Yay!
It is on time. Thank you. And it's out in the hall. There is a really great spot right outside the door that way, outside. It's probably 82 and sunny today, and it's in the shade. So if you guys want to go out there, that would be sweet. That way I don't get in trouble from getting pizza sauce on the floor. That'd be awesome. Break. Oh, go ahead.
All right, I'll let you guys know that I've got some spaceflight prototype and engineering model hardware from Northrop Grumman that I'm going to sit out, actually out here, so that we have it, we can have it. But it's prototype hardware, so and engineering models and soldering things, soldering models and stuff like that. So you can come pick it up and look at it and see actually how this stuff is built and how it works. I'm going to go out and get the pizza, but I'll come back in and we can talk about what you're actually looking at. If you saw Space Vidcast last night, we kind of did a show and tell on Space Vidcast. But for those of you who are here today, you can actually come here and look at it, live in person.
And folks, I'll have hardware if you're wondering what you get for that $8,000 tube set kit or how to build one. I brought all the pieces to show during pizza because it's fun to build stuff.
Awesome. Go eat some pizza. I don't want to bring it home.
Let's fly over to Mars. I've got a nice little texture of Mars. That's 16,000 pixels across at the equator. We're doing the same thing for the Earth as well. Spacecraft in orbit around Mars. I think you can probably see where this sort of technology can go. Here's the Earth. These are the same spacecraft you can see on Eyes on the Earth right now. In their proper locations in orbit around the Earth. You can go ride on board with them. In fact, you can go ride on board with any of the spacecraft we've put into this thing so far. And we can expand it beyond Earth orbit. We can show things that are happening right now. This is actually the Cassini spacecraft, a flyby of Titan from a couple of months ago, using the actual spice kernels. This is positional and pointing data that's used by the missions themselves, put into this thing so you can see what a spacecraft actually got up to. And you can do this for years and years of a mission. We can go back in history. These are the spice kernels for one of the Voyager spacecraft. So we're going back to the late 70s, early 80s, doing a Saturn flyby. We don't quite have the pointing information for Voyager here, but you can go back, you can look at Pioneer 10, Pioneer 11, Voyager 1 and 2, missions in the past, and missions in the future as well, because a mission proposal will involve simulated spice kernels. So here you can see the Juno spacecraft in orbit doing a slingshot past the Earth to fly out all the way towards Jupiter, and you can see, just to kind of reinforce this real time in 3D, I panned here and watch those first few orbits as it gets there. And we can even go further into the future. I can't really think of a better way than this to explain to someone how gravity assists get a spacecraft from the inner solar system all the way out to Jupiter there. These aren't working too well on this screen. If you want to come have a look at this afterwards, I'll show you it on my laptop. And this is unfortunately pretty dark. This is riding on board an asteroid. This is riding on board Apophis, in fact, for its flyby in a couple of...
I'm going to let Doug introduce himself, and then we're going to get going. Everybody excited? Everybody having a good time? Yeah! So much better than that dribble you gave me this morning. Yeah, we're excited.
Have that coffee.
Still whining, Mike.
You're whining.
Oh, I violated my own rule. Wait. Grand Poobah. It's going to get really dark in here. As soon as I figure out this, it's a good thing I don't operate spaceships because that's not the right one. How many engineers does it take to turn on the lights?
They're back.
Oh. That's better. That's better. That's good. That works. You ready?
I'm ready.
Kind of like an elevator, actually.
All right. Go ahead and go. You're good.
I get the presenter slide as well. Okay, I'm going to introduce myself before I hit go, because I've only got 5 minutes and not going to waste a lot of introductions. My name is Doug Ellison. I'm a visualization producer at JPL, and yes, I am British. I moved out here about 4 months ago. He goes nothing. So what I'm going to show you is, I'm very lucky to be able to do this. This is the first public exposure of a project we're working on called the Explorer engine. This is our group's attempt to try and solve something of a difficult problem. And that problem is that the solar system is exceptionally large. It covers kind of 12 scales of magnitude from a person to the orbit of Pluto. Spacecraft are traveling exceptionally fast, and yet you're watching it in a map, it's not moving. And we've got spacecraft that can be moving incredibly quickly, but things happening incredibly slowly. And we've tried to explain this to people. There are lots of traditional ways of explaining this to people. We can show you orbit trajectory maps, or flyby trajectories, or kind of a pre-rendered visualization, or animates various pieces of data. But I think we can and should try and do better. We've done better for Earth science. Some of you may have heard of a project called Eyes on the Earth. That's what this is. This is real-time Earth observation satellite data in your browser on a 3D Earth showing actual orbit trajectory lines bang up to date. You can get data from this one. In fact, I was showing someone earlier. Today is carbon monoxide, or carbon monoxide over Russia with those recent fires. But can we do that for the whole solar system? And the answer is probably yes. We know where the spacecraft are. We know what data they've taken. We know where all the planets are. If we tie it all together with some contextualized content, some tours, and some tools, we come up with what we've called the Explorer engine. It looks a little bit like this. It's a bit dark. Hopefully you can see it. This is running in real time in 3D. These are screen-captured movies. And you can see we've got the solar system here, a few spacecraft. You can zoom in and out. You can run time forwards or backwards. You can zoom down to very small scale or very, very large scale. Here's to give you an example of where the technology goes. AcromSat's about the size of a golf cart. So we can zoom out past the Earth, past the inner solar system, watch Orion deconstruct itself. That's a couple of thousand nearest stars. This thing expands well beyond the solar system. Next video, here we go. Come on. We've got visualizations of comets, an estimated nucleus, a simulated comet tail. Yes, the analogy to Celestia is one we've made ourselves. A byline we've often come up for is this thing is Celestia for the rest of us. I sometimes struggle to get Celestia to do exactly what I want to do. I'm never sure if it's up to date. I'm never sure if I'm using something that's wrong. Sometimes it doesn't work. With this, all of that is taken out of your hands. It's everything we want to show you up to date, as accurate as we can make it, plus that contextualized content that we're going to be bringing into it by the time we release it in October. No, it's using the Unity 3D engine in your browser. At the back.
Is there plans to bring citizens in so they can inject content?
We want to try and engage people with a kind of a 2.0 version. We want to try and bring in some social media, have people sharing views or kind of building their own favorite solar system and things like that. It's all a case of time and money at some point in the future. And we're thinking of kind of different ideas for games whereby people can kind of bake their own content that they then throw into this system and see how it behaves with the rest of the solar system. So yeah, it's something we're looking at. If you've got some good ideas, come and find me, because I'd love to hear them. Yes?
Explorer engine, is it for the version coming out in October?
Yes.
Pre-programmed, is it predefined applications, or can you build?
No, it's a built, managed thing in a browser. It's not something you can take off and play with, tweak yourself. It's on its own, defined, the content defined by us.
In the future, because I'm currently working with a problem with SDK that is requiring, vast, scale differences.
Yes.
In designing a mission.
Decades time, showing how close it gets to the Earth. If someone's terrified by the impending end of the world, courtesy of some rogue asteroid, we can put it in here and show them just how close it gets, or indeed how far away it actually is. And this is kind of a God-eye view, an overhead view, showing Apophis. You can see the orbit of the moon there and just how close it gets. The actual orbit trajectory line bends as it goes past the Earth. It's an interesting way of trying to explain this. Now, these are all kind of things that have happened in the past, things that are happening in the future, kind of historical or predictive. But this is the Epoxy spacecraft. This is the Deep Impact Extended Mission. And here's an accelerated version of its flypast of Comet Hartley 2 using predicted kernels for the spacecraft and the comet. This is going to happen in the beginning of November, November 4th. That's highly accelerated, but this is one of those very unique situations whereby something is happening so quickly, this is actually now shown in real time. This is how quick it would actually occur. So we can say to someone, welcome to this mission. What's it doing right now? And take them to see it, show them exactly where it's pointing, where it's flying, and what it's flying past in real time. This is just a little sample of what this thing can do. These are the people responsible for it. Kevin is our boss. The programming team are on the left. The artistic team are on the right. I make the T. I'm at the bottom there. And the punchline for this, the thing that I think makes it so much more powerful than anything else that may be out there, is that you'll be able to try this thing in October. Not downloading anything, not installing anything. It'll be in your web browser. Everything I've shown you will work straight in your web browser. Brace yourselves, the solar system is coming to your desktop. Thank you very much indeed.
Okay, questions for him real quick?
Yes.